Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel. Welcome to the Dice Tower. I recently had a video where I discussed board games giving credit to people. And we should be giving credit to the designer, the publisher, and etc. The rule book is a great place to put it. Definitely a credit to everybody who was involved with a game. Here's the thing, I love board games, and I've played thousands of them. I love thousands of board games. But board games, like all media, are made by human beings. What happens if I find out a human being is not as nice as I thought, or they're just straight up trash, or a criminal, or I just find out that they're diametrically opposed to my worldviews, or they say and do things that I disagree with? This happens a lot in media. Authors, actors, etc. are often yelled about online when people find things about them. You might find out that they're, like I said, they're criminal, they've done terrible things, or maybe not necessarily criminal, but highly unethical things, or just maybe something that's controversial, something that goes against something that's at the deep core of your values. So the question is, how do you deal with the product then? So we have games. We're talking about games in these videos, and there's different levels of dealing with the game. There are people who promote the game. You are actively selling the game. You're telling people this game is good. Or maybe at a store where you're selling a game, or just out there advertising a game. There are people who just talk positively about the game. I really enjoy this game. Or maybe just the fact that you own the game. Or maybe even smaller than that, just the act of playing the game. And each person who exists can and often has to make a decision on what level are you comfortable with once you find out these things about the person who made the game. And in this case, I'm going to say this a lot just about people. I might be talking about the designer or the publisher or the artist. It could be anyone involved with the game at all. So I think at the core of it, we look at this, and this is something that's talked a lot about online. Can you separate art from the artist? But is the game the person? We don't think so when we criticize a game, right? If I sit there and I trash a game and I say this game is terrible, one of the worst games I ever played, you don't think that I'm a monster and hate the designer and everything they stand for. Just because I hate the game doesn't mean I dislike the person who made the game. And in fact, often it's quite the opposite. I simply don't like the game. So as a counterpoint then, is the game bad simply because the designer is a cretin? I don't think the value of a game has anything to do with the designer, with the rare exception of if they somehow are sticking their values into the game that I despise. But there's more to it than that, right? What if they financially profit from it? I don't want that. So that leads into the tricky topic of boycotting. You know, I'm not going to buy a game, therefore this person won't make money. But what if I buy it on the secondary market? What if someone gives it to me? Is me just liking the game and telling people about it, that's going to help the author indirectly? What if they're dead? You know, am I helping them by buying the game? To this, each person really has to find their own way. Hurting this person financially might hurt other people. There are many people, the local store, the distributor, the publisher, the designer, the artist, lots of different people involved with the game that I'm hurting also. Should they suffer because they had the misfortune to work with someone, often someone they didn't know about or anything like this? When it comes to books, I think you can read a book by someone with dubious morals and learn something. It might be their best work. It might be them at their best in that book. And in the book world I've read, there's a lot of authors who've done heinous and terrible things. You could even read a book with morals that you despise and learn from it to help you do the opposite. Good game design, like it or not, doesn't depend on good morals. You can dislike a designer and enjoy their games. Enjoying the games does not mean you're endorsing the designer. Humans are messy and multifaceted. Good people do bad things, etc. But in the end, really, it's a personal choice. If you can't play a game because every time you do it, you're bothered by thinking about the person who made that game and their problems, then you shouldn't do it, as it's spoiling your enjoyment. And if you think it's wrong to financially support them in any way, which is tricky because you can still be doing it in some roundabout way, but that's fine. Here's the thing. If you can separate the person and their work, this isn't wrong. It shows that you can compartmentalize. We're often hypocrites about this anyway. You know, we tend to, when we agree with people, we're annoyed when someone else doesn't like their games. Someone does something, we're like, that's not that big of a deal, or I actually agree with it, and other people boycott it or say they don't want to play the game or whatever. We're like, oh, come on. And then we often will give some people a pass because we love their work. I really like this, so I'm really not going to talk about this sort of thing. We don't want our guy to be targeted, and we'll find an excuse or a way to excuse what they've done. Now, speaking out publicly about this is a different story, and it's not really the point of this video. I'm cautious of someone telling me I can't enjoy something because of someone involved with the product. Or, even worse, inferring that I'm somehow okay with the various moral depravities just because I enjoy the game that these people made. I also think I can hate a game and despise its message and not transfer that to the designer. But as I said, it's up to you. I've done a lot of research on this because a lot of people talk about this online, not necessarily about games and the people involved in making of games, but in just art in general, whether it's music or movies or books, etc. And if you choose, let's say you're a store owner, you choose not to sell games in your store because you're opposed to publisher designer, you have that right. If you refuse to play a game because it brings you pain, remember what that designer has done or said. That's fair. I'm more concerned when we try to police those opinions upon others. That's a bigger problem. When we try to transfer our thoughts on it and to be divisive sometimes in that regard. But what do you think? Now, when I made this video, when I put my thoughts together on this, I was not thinking about anybody in particular. I have no one in mind. I'm not referencing something. I'm not doing a vague book because something came up. This is something I think about often throughout the years, and so I wanted to talk about this in a general way. And so I'm asking that you continue this on in the comments. You can discuss this topic, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it. But if you bring up a specific person or a specific company, I'm going to delete it because I don't want to obfuscate the discussion. I want this to be something that we can just talk about clearly and without saying so-and-so's terrible. There are terrible people, for sure. There are people also who are fantastic people, but have done things that aren't so great. And then there are sometimes just people we disagree with. How do we deal with the games that they make? What do you think? Hey everybody, thanks for watching another video on the Dice Tower. Hey, do you want to know what's going on with Dice Tower? Do you want to know about our events, our cruises, special things that we're going to do live here in the Dice Tower? Subscribe to Dice Tower Digest. Go to dicetowerdigest.com. It's a newsletter that we send out bi-weekly. We won't use your email for anything else. This is just to get you some information about the Dice Tower so you'll be up to date. Thanks for watching.